In this video, we'll take a look at one Gigabyte 3090. Here, the customer changed the thermal pads, after which the card stopped working. The customer sends the card to Gigabyte for a warranty repair because the device is still under warranty. The warranty service refuses to take over the repair because the customer has changed the thermal pads. The original notes from Gigabyte are still on the card. I have covered the personal information so we can take a look what is written there. As you can clearly see, the reason is product manipulated user opened and changed thermal pads. Okay, here comes the question. Should the manufacturers deny warranty after replacing thermal pads of a product that you purchased and is your property, assuming that the warranty of these devices is 2 years? Can the manufacturer guarantee that within those 2 years you will not have to replace thermal pads and paste? Here is the case. The customer changed it. After that, the card is no longer working. Let's open the card and find out whose fault is this. Is this the Gigabyte fault or is the customer fault? I have noticed that the thermal paste is not spreaded fully, so this means this card doesn't have a good contact between the cooler and the GPU chip. The only one reason for this is too big thermal pads. So let's use a caliper and change and check what size should the thermal pads be. So I want to measure the distance from here to here, and we have 2.24 millimeters. I can zero that and measure the distance from the GPU place to the same spot, and we have 0.55. So originally, if everything is flat, so if the GPU and the RAM chips area are flat, the thermal pads should be 2 millimeters. In this case, we have difference with 0.5. This means 2 millimeters minus 0.5 makes the perfect fitment for this card should be 1.5 millimeters thermal pads. Let's zero that again. Take one of the thermal pads, measure it, and we have, these are 2 millimeter pads. This means that the customer changed the thermal pads with the wrong size. After that, the card is no longer working. In this case, the Gigabyte service has right. So from here we have to diagnose where the problem is. We already know the cause of this problem: wrong thermal pad size. When the pads are smaller than normal, should nothing happen. The card would overheat, but nothing more. If the pads are too big and you tight the screws everywhere, these thermal pads are applying a lot of pressure on the RAM chips, and this causes some of the solder joints to crack. After that, we have no picture, we have errors or artifacts, everything like that. So let's diagnose the card and find out where the problem is and try to repair it. As usual, let's start with some measurements to be completely sure that the card is safe to work. Checking the 12 volts, looking for short circuits, 3.3, looking good, 8 pin. Connectors from the power supply and the second one also looking good. Let's switch to resistance mode and measure the internal power rails. Let's start with the memory. We can measure here this coil on the top, around 40, perfect. Specs, this inductor here, 6.2, also good. 1.8 volts, around 300 is working for us. And here we have one, so the first 5 volts, and here is one more, also 5 volts. No short circuits there. So I will dump the training status of the RAM chips and we can take a look together. And here are the results. We have a lot of errors on bank A1. A1 is located right here. And for the 3090 series, we have 2 RAM chips working in one partition. So in the partition are 4 actually, but at A1 are 2. Here, this one and this one. Let's scroll down and check the others. So they're looking good. The only problem is A1 right here. And assuming that the thermal pads from the top side were too big, I can almost say that this RAM chip is faulty right now or has broken connections under it. In the worst case, we will have broken connections under the GPU chip, but let's first start with the RAM chip, remove it, see what is going on under it, and we can go from there. I just removed the chip from the top side, the A1 from the top side, and I decided also to go for the bottom side, so I removed the bottom side also. And what I have noticed here, pay attention to the capacitors here. The first one, we can clearly see that it's not original. The second one is not perfect straight. So this means somebody was already here. Who? I don't know. Let's check the code written on the chip. This is the part number D8BGX, and on top is the production date and some serial. Pay attention to this one, the card. So the all 24 RAM chips on the card should have the same code. This is from the front side. We have 0DT, and let's check the chip from the back side. Here is the back side, and we have 0XT77, completely different. So let's check one of the other RAM chips. Maybe we can see. Let me clear one. So they're a little bit dirty from the thermal pads. So here we have 0XT77, and the same with the all other RAM chips. So this means somebody replaced one of the RAM chips here on A1. I'm not the first person working on this device. So with all this, I will clean everything here and also the bottom side, solder 2 new RAM chips and test the card again. I just soldered two new RAM chips on A1 front and the back side also. I dumped the data again for the training status and the errors are still there. This means we have cracked solder joints under the GPU chip, and I have to lift the GPU chip now. Let's do that. And here is the 3090 after a GPU rebuild. There was nothing unusual under the GPU chip. All the traces were perfect, no broken connections, no ripped pads. After the soldering job, I tested the card again and I still have the same errors on bank A1. I will show on the screen right here. We also replaced the whole A1 in the front and the back with the new RAM chips. They're completely new, they should work. but the card has still the same errors. This means that our GPU chip, so the memory controller, is damaged. There is nothing what we can do more here. I will inform the customer for this card, and for you, be very careful when changing the thermal pads in the future for your cards. Always double check the size before tightening the screws. If you need a repair, check the links in the video description, and we will see us in the next one.